Well, where are we? After what was really kind of an exciting period, the last video was very exciting. If you haven't seen it, if you're just sort of skipping through some of these, oh, got to change batteries. If you say don't watch the full video or something, just watch the intros or little beginnings or whatever, you probably want to see the last one. It was the best part of the game yet. But what happened was we had two successful usurpations, I believe one over here and one over here, one against another player. And then this faction, Lady Melanie's faction, was so powerful that it looked like she was going to roll to victory. And I was ready for the game to end. But unfortunately, on the final turn of the game, there was a successful treachery of the monarch, stealing him away. That's sort of a delay of game tactic. And this is the thing, this period can go on for a long time because people can like swing that control of the monarch during the 3-turn delay periods again and again and again. Now, that wouldn't solve the problem because her faction was still so powerful she could easily overtake his. But it would start the timer again, which, you know, gives everybody a lot more time. Kind of like rover play in, what the fuck is it? Rail Baron. Where you hit somebody and now they're no longer able to win the game right away. They have to get themselves back into position and again declare a win. But then, over here, Lady Margaret did an assassination against Lady Melanie, killed her, and stripped her faction down to about half its size. So now there's neutral characters out there again. This definitely helps him, but basically it helps all the other players because everyone else is kind of in a stronger position than the current monarch holder. And that means, you know, they can probably wrest control, or at least it appears that they are. He actually has a handful of support in his pocket. But it does kind of make it so that other players are going to be taking shots at the game. Now, one nice thing is we're still in this kind of end game, and I think the play is going to be a little bit more exciting than it has been for the past few videos. But we're still going to be at the point where we're counting up PPs and trying to make sure we can fit the entire faction together and everything like that. That's just a pain in the ass to the whole game. Now, one thing that's kind of painful to the game is, I guess you have to have the status to take Thomas into your faction. It doesn't really specifically say this. To take Thomas into your faction to lead a coup. But if he succeeds, you may end up, by getting the monarch card on him, exceeding your PP and have to let some people loose, which of course is kind of shitty. But anyway, but that's true with any monarch. Anytime you grab a monarch, you may end up exceeding your current PP by successfully usurping. And there doesn't seem to be anything in the rules that prevents that from happening. Like you're not allowed, like there's not a prohibition from usurping if you don't have the points for the title, unlike a lot of other things where you can't, like I couldn't have grabbed Thomas using treachery even to prevent the game from ending, unless I had enough PP to do so. Anyway, that's where we're sitting right now. Why does he have the foreign support? He must have stolen it. And yeah, I mean, it's an exciting part of the game, I guess, still. It's just, I really was tired of this thing already, you know? What little excitement that it does bring, it is just not worth the cost in terms of the cumbersome nature of the game itself. But we'll continue playing. Somebody asked me a question, why do you play games you don't like? I think I've answered this before. they asked me in in a PM, and among many other things, we've been having a conversation. And not something I generally do. I don't know why I got drawn into doing it here. It's not like I particularly am opposed to it. It's just like, you know, it's just I usually don't like link in and keep chatting. Um, but it's something I probably ought to do a video on. But very briefly, it's a sense of duty. I have a sense of duty to my games, and I have learned stuff about games that I don't like that make me like them over time. So, you know, I mean, let's take a look at the whole sort of, they're over here somewhere. The whole sort of Avalon Hill Classics. I've got the Africa Core there. I've got others, Midway. Midway I always liked, though. Battle of the Bulge, stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of those. But I used to kind of despise them. I despised the artwork on them. I despised uh, the way the rules were written, and I felt like they were far too simplistic, right? Now, I still don't like the artwork, and I still don't like the way the rules are written, but there's something that I've grown to like about the more simple games, and I'll go with some of the older SPI games too. While I always liked Winter War, I actually am finding myself liking things like, you know, Napoleon's Last Battles and stuff like that, at least a little bit more than I have in a long, you know, that I had in a long time. So when I first got games, those were a great entry into the hobby. And then a little later on, I was more into more detailed types of types of simulations that gave me more information about what the hell's going on, right? And gave me a richer story. I don't like the thinkiness of some of, like, if you take a look at like Africa Core, it can get to a geometric like situation where you're basically just doing gamey stuff because of the geometry of the board. And I don't like that. It becomes okay when it becomes second nature, which is part of the problem for me. Is that, like, I didn't tend to play these games enough and enjoy them enough for them to become some sort of second nature in terms of dealing with the geometry of the boards. And then once that kind of happened a little bit, I don't know, I slowed down, I was older, whatever. And we're talking like, you know, maybe 35 or so. Anzio, I think, was the first one that really kind of kicked me in the butt with, yeah, this isn't that bad. Although the game itself drags like a motherfucker. But yeah, I've gotten sort of more willingness to play those kind of games. So, you know, something like this. I've seen stuff in the last couple turns that I haven't seen before when playing it, which is of some value. And, you know, if only, like, I know this game would be a lot more fun opposed, but the same facet just rules this thing, which is trying to bring these rules and all the charts, and all the special information, some of it hidden in the rules, some of it all over the tables and everything, to a group of players just feels like such a, you know, it sounds like a huge burden on me, but it's also a burden on the players, and they're going to be like doing shit without knowing what the fuck they're doing, because the game really does demand a lot of knowledge about what charts to use when and shit like that. And it's almost, you know, it reminds me of the modern Euro. So those of you who like modern Euros, you might actually like this, other than the cumbersome nature of the play, because it is a design that sort of obfuscates what you need to do. And once you know what you need to do in certain circumstances, there really isn't a lot of strategy anymore, which is fine, I don't mind that there's like, what I don't like is games that you have to struggle to discover to be able to play competently. I think that's my biggest problem with the modern Euro, and in this one too. Which one of these specific tables do you want to use? What do you? It's just fucking annoying. Well, I'm back from shopping. Started playing some Raid. Got it playing by itself downstairs. But I think I realized I didn't mention or didn't go into the primary reason why I play games that I kind of don't like. It's not just, hey, I might end up liking it, right? Because with something like this, I think I can pretty much say, yeah, I'm not going to really fall in love with it. Although some people are like, oh, you must really be loving it. No, it's the same as before. It's just, it's finally showed some interest. It's shown some aspects where there's interest. When I'm laughing and everything, don't count that as enjoying. I'm not really enjoying the game. I'm enjoying, I don't know. If there is any enjoyment there, it's in hacking on something. I laugh at the ludicrous. But the main reason is duty. And it's duty not to you guys. I put out my videos. I'm not sure why, to tell you the truth. I think there's some duty to put out videos and whatnot and to get to the things. But the main thing with playing the games, I used to cycle through my games in this very same way, is that once I own something, once it's mine, I kind of have a duty to use it, to enjoy it or to spend some time with it, whatever, and it's really hard on the games I really, really don't like. Things like Panzer Leader and Panzer Blitz, and Squad Leader, which just, they hardly make it in. It's so tough for me to get them into the rotation. I really, like, it has to be like when I did the walkthrough history, I got through that. So this is higher on the list than those are, although those are probably better games. But yeah, this is only higher on the list because there's something that's interesting about what it's attempting to be, or what I hoped it would be. There's nothing particularly interesting about, like, the mechanisms that are used I find cumbersome, but also just, not that imaginative. Do something, roll on a chart. Do something, roll on a chart. It just doesn't feel that interesting in terms of that. Compare this to, Kremlin, which has this interesting bidding mechanism on characters, or Republic of Rome, which has all kind of interesting stuff going on. I just don't feel like there's that much here. But also, there's the, wow, this really, really doesn't capture the story you'd expect it to capture. The world that's spun here is one that's just like outside of any believability for me. Note that I find things like fantasy games, more believable, right? Like, if there's dragons and stuff like that, even though I know that probably something like that, it would be pretty hard to create a biology that works for that, or, whatever. But here I'm just like looking at it and I'm like, these people are not acting according to human nature. It is nighttime, I guess almost midnight on Wednesday, almost Thursday. And first player is going to be way up here. First time since the first turn. There are no offices to fill. So there's that. And the kingdom is in pretty good shape. The monarch support is as high as it gets. There are no problems. Get those foreign wars written down. Let me get them out of there. But in my life, I'm I played a little bit of Raid and then went to sleep. And I've got to wait. And I got like another 2 hours. I'm going to try to play a little bit of this. I'm going to try to throw Crusader Kings up and maybe get a little bit of that in as well. Because it feels to me like victory is kind of out of reach compared to... I mean, at the very least, someone's got to get... Like where it was before, someone who was clearly in the lead could win. But now it doesn't feel like there's anyone clearly in the lead. So we may have, I don't know how long, of struggling back and forth. Of course, failure weakens you. So you can't, like, every time there's a usurpation, somebody's going to lose and somebody's going to die. And that faction, the faction that wins is going to be coming out, if anything, a little stronger. So, I don't know. I think we're still in the end game here, but whatever. Let's see what our crown event is. I think that's where we are. I can never remember the sequence of play here. We get a political problem? Why don't we just play it out? 5, Foreign War. The Minister of the Army. What that is. That's Duke Henry up there. He's a 5. Can be modified by the Minister of State, who is over here, Sir Richard. Wasn't that a player? Huh. Guess not. Okay. Minister of the Army, so we go up to a 6. The General, well, actually, I think we may play against ourselves. So we may go down to a 4, make it a 3. Yeah, we'll go for a 3, because we want to reduce the monarch support, but I don't want to be deliberately incompetent, particularly. And that works. So what was it? A foreign war. I don't know who the foreign war is against. That might make some difference to my decisions. All right, let's see what we got here. It's Sandarkan. I don't know where that ambassador is. That's one of my own guys. So, yeah. Probably would have made sense to try to solve it. Yeah, a little hard. But yeah, that's the event. So we take a 10-point hit there. And I know, I had a nap. I'm punchy. Okay, we ended up in a duel. Now I have a henchman in Earl Francis. I could use him. He's not very good. I'm not all that good either. I'm in Kronos. Oh. Yeah, there's no one in Kronos. So I'm not going to trigger my henchman. I'm safe from the duel. How about that? And we get Sir Guy. I've got to figure out if I can get him. So we're going to follow the normal here. I've got 32 points here. So this is 8, 18, 21, 26, 29. What did I say? 32? So I can pick up Sir Guy barely. But I probably want to do other things to try to improve my PP. Overall, for my turn, I gained quite a bit of PP, including counseling. Going over to Lady Margaret here. I have Queen Catherine. This is the point where, can I usurp, right? I can look at their points and make an estimate of how much they actually have and estimate that to my own. And this is, so the first couple of times I did this, sure, it was a bit of a burden, but it was kind of fun. But now this is what the game's become. in addition to seeing, hey, am I at my cap and everything. So one more burden has been added to the game, right? Which is the constant, what is my chance count, you know? Between what I have, including support cards in my hand, and what he has, I have about 32 to 36, you know, estimating die rolls and whatnot. But on top of that, we've got the 110 here, which is another 30. So I'm just nowhere near. That monarch support is way too high for me to be able to take a shot at a usurpation. So instead, what I do is I try to build up my situation, whatever that may mean. Right now, one big advantage, I have some PP. I can grab Lord Arthur and improve my position that way. That's worth, you know, another 5 points right there. And I can also try to dredge event cards if I have a job that allows me to. I don't. I have Bessesen, which, again, I don't even think there's a card for support for Bessesen. There's no catalog of all the cards or anything like that available, so I don't know if there is or not, but I think Bessesen's special and doesn't have a foreign aid card. In approximately the same level as the player with the king. So I'm not in a position that I can try to overcome a king with high support. I had a scandal, that's fine, that I'm choosing not to do. I chose to roll on the sporting table. You can very easily get a big -2 on the sporting table. A 5 or a 6 is poor sport. I rolled a 5, I guess. Poor sport, fight a duel, gives you a -2 on the table. You don't get to play there anymore, basically, until you die. So, you know, yeah, it's got some nice abilities there, but it's just so likely to fuck you over so that you can't play on that table anymore. I didn't realize that's not a bad early table. So I got a duel ending up with Sir Geoffrey, and I'll use red for the player. I played a treachery to reduce Geoffrey's chance of killing me. I think I killed Geoffrey, which is pretty bad, because I have a 4. Nobody was trying to save him. So Geoffrey just died. That means we have funerals available, and on a 1, I'm accused of a wrongdoing. Okay. So now it's just play on the funeral table. I only have one other action left, which is probably... which is to go get Sir Geoffrey. Sir Geoffrey is dead, so I can't get him. Well, with Geoffrey dead, and I guess he goes back in the cup. See, normally only PCs are flipped over like that. I don't know. I'm just making shit up, I guess. I went with the Exposes Scandal. I had an informer. My target did not. Does he have a henchman? Yeah, he can target a henchman with this, I guess. But I ended up getting a total of 5 with that, which is lose half IP and accused of wrongdoing. We'll hit the henchman with the wrongdoing. Although that's got its own dangers. So I've already got one guy. Oh, I'm already a wrongdoer. The fuck? I'm accused of a wrongdoing anyway. Oh no, that's a knight. That's not. Yeah, okay. That's not hiding. So yeah, we'll go through the accusation and all that. Earl Francis, he's a 3, so he will be going to trial. I'm going to send him into hiding. I gotta be careful. This guy's in hiding too. The main reason for this is to avoid being sent to a hearing and then tortured. Now I get to counsel or whatever, and I really don't give a shit. I'm having no fun again, right? I had a little bit of enjoyment And I'll say half of it was, oh, the game's going to be over. And it's going to be over and I'm not going to quit. And now I feel like it's close enough to over that I can't quit, but it's back to the same fucking shit. Like there's the little charge of fun that came from, ooh, the game has changed and it's gonna be over real soon, has gone away, both of them. And now it's just like this miserable experience again. I tried to counsel to use the military. It came out to a 0 on the die roll, but I got a bad roll. Lost I guess I used my Monarch's counselor for it because I don't want to lose the Ministry of Justice with a judge in my pocket. That's too powerful a combination to just lose. And then I tried to take a turn for this one. This is the dead character. Let's close things out by putting one of these on the Monarch to indicate I have survived a full turn. I really can't face another turn. You know, first of all, my Crusader Kings is playing music. It's not up yet. I don't know how long it's going to take either. I remember from when I was playing Banish All Their Fears that like it keeps loading for a long time silently, and then I think it keeps loading for a long time with a little bit of noise. So I don't know what the fuck to do. But I have absolutely no will to do another turn of this shit right now. It's really hard to face a game that's this unpleasant to play. And, you know, I mean, at least that's one of the things, like if I pull out like Panzer Blitz or something, which I dislike a lot more actively, at least it's relatively easy to play and I can just say, fuck it, I'm just going to do some shit. Here, I just don't feel like I can do that. I feel like, I don't know. Equivalent here would be just not to really take turns and try, you know, not to be trying to win the game with anyone. Crusader Kings, after playing this, went downstairs, fucked around for about a half hour because it still wasn't loaded. Now it's like not responsive. I think it is now. But it's like, damn it, you know, because there's been times where I played it where I let it start and come up a little too late or whatever, and it just crashes. And it's like, you know, I had 2.5 hours when I came up here. I knew it would take some time to load. It took about an hour to load. I'm guessing. I was downstairs, you know, I'm kind of splitting the difference there. It might have taken 45 minutes. It might have taken an hour and 15, right? That's the amount of time that from when I pushed the button. And, you know, whatever. Out of my 2.5 hours that I had allocated, and I was hoping this turn would be quicker, but I was also hoping, you know, I'd be able to play that. Well, now I have like an hour to play. That's it. and that's all I'm going to be able to do, because then I do raid and then I go to sleep. It takes too fucking long to load. That the game is very unresponsive. I've noticed this before too. Like, you have to play for a little while. Early on it worked fine, right? But once the game gets big enough, you have to play for a little while for it to like start responding. And I just don't have the fucking patience, you know? I'm up here, I'm like, let's give it another fucking try. I didn't really enjoy it. You know, I was beginning to get bored with it and whatever. And now it's just like, it's unplayable, you know? If it was always this speed, it would just be pure unplayable, but it's not. And I mean, you know, it's like the time, and yeah, I know I have it on pause right now. The time passes. It normally, like, you know, a day or whatever, it takes maybe a second or something. maybe less than that, I don't know. They just fly by really fast at fast level. But now it's like it takes 20 seconds for a day to go by. And clicking on something takes a long time to respond to and everything. I don't know what the game's doing. I think it's still trying to read those huge files and internalize them and index them and all that. But it's just like, it's amazing when you consider how clunky like the game still is. Back on the original version, I understood when they were using text files and everything, that once you got to a certain level of game state or whatever, it would just get really ugly. But now, it's just like, I'm just going to shut it down. I'm going to go watch a video for an hour. You know, fuck it. Here we are back again. It's Thursday, midday-ish. Trying to convince myself I need, so I got this little rubber thing on my glasses, fell off. Now I've replaced these before on these glasses. This happened on Friday, and you know, it kind of bugs my nose not to have it. I'm trying to convince myself to go out and pick up new ones. I tried at the supermarket, they don't carry damn near anything for eye care anymore. I don't know what happened. I couldn't even find the reading glasses that used to be there. But I've got a drugstore, you know, as close as the closest supermarket. And also, I had been craving these chocolates that I can only get down there. But, you know, I kind of don't really want them, and I don't know what else I'd buy. So I'm kind of like, I can go some more time. Part of it is I'm really kind of wiped out from shopping yesterday. You could say, geez, man, you're getting really out of shape. And yeah, to the extent that I woke up with a fair amount of pain in my chest, but I don't know. Could have just been sleeping, you know, on that side or something. But it took a while to recover. But again, I'm getting old. All right, here we are. One turn done on Thomas's reign. His situation actually seems more secure than I thought it would be. The high monarch support is really giving him a fair amount of value. The first player is over here, Lady Margaret. There's an office open, the Ministry of Trade. I got the money. I could grab it. I could give it to a number of different people. But the only person who's kind of effective at jobs is Sir Malcolm. I wouldn't gain any status for giving it to Sir Malcolm. Now that means it wouldn't eat up any of this. I have like 30 points of this. I don't know. I mean, so this is where playing solo is getting in the way, right? Because a single player can keep calculating, you know, during other players' turns, they can look at how many PP they have, and they can calculate how much status they have. And they can have a pretty good idea all the time. Whereas by playing 4 or worse, and that may be why this play of it doesn't hurt as much as others did, 6 factions, I'm constantly having to do that recalculation, right? So this is a particularly bad game to play solo. And I kind of didn't realize that until just now, that like, yeah, that constant recalculation, and this is something, you know, that you'll see in some of the Euro designs too, or in coin games, or Here I Stand, or something like that, where everybody could kind of like count their own victory conditions, and every now and then they'll say, wait a minute, my track is off, or something like that, because they're paying attention to a degree that that I can't as the sole player. But here, it's definitely, you know, there's no reason to hide it or whatever. What would actually happen is I'd fuck up and get in trouble, and I'd be breaking the rules. So it seems exceedingly important to, like, you know, see, are you within compliance? But anyway, I'm kind of torn on whether I want to spend 2 IP to just gain an office that I think someone else could do just fine. So I'm going to pass on it and let someone else choose it if they want it. Actually, everybody else is in kind of a tighter PP situation, including the player with the Monarch, who kind of is like, whatever. I don't know if he even has somebody you could give it to. I guess Earl Francis could take it, which means it's going to get distributed randomly. Nobody wanted to buy it. Kind of regretting, I would have assumed one of those others did. I had problems, so, and some of it is, I'm just not good at counting, right? Like with this player, I had to go over it like 2 or 3 times because I kept forgetting numbers and whatnot, because I've got other thoughts in my head while I'm playing. And there's just, you know, a game where you have to keep a count constantly is just, again, that is something that's problematic to me, even if I'm playing alone, even if I'm playing in an opposed situation as opposed to solo. So my first roll is 36. Well, where's 36? I don't know. We got to look everywhere, and basically the blue counters are easier to see than anything else. So that's Lord Arthur. Does he want to be made Minister of Trade instead? Sure. We'll take that upgrade. He's effective, and ambassadorship is kind of a shitty position, but now that means we roll for the ambassadorship. And we get 45. I don't know if 45 is, I think it's an office holder, so we'll look. See, second judge, first judge is 46. That's dangerous. The magistrate is 45, so we roll again. It is one of the problems. Is like, more than half the numbers are potential office holders. 61 I know isn't. That's Lady Victoria. That's in the female range. 31. So now we look again. And so much of the game is spent doing these kind of things that, okay, Ministry of Justice, I don't want that. I don't want to lose my job to become ambassador to Epplin. And I can't be forced to do so. So we do it again. All right, I'm gonna turn off the camera because this is getting stupid. But you have these kind of sequences of just roll after roll after roll, and then this hunt for the character, and no, it's not the one. Republic of Rome has something similar with a chit cup of identity numbers. Generally, it's like, oh, there's a random death, and you pull one out. And you have to look through everybody who's on the board once to find if they're out there. And if they are, they die. That chit cup is used for other aspects as well, not for assigning people, but for like battle losses and stuff like that. But there, you're just pulling a pile of chits and seeing if a particular number comes up, or certain particular numbers. Here, it's just this obnoxious thing. Now, of course, you're rolling instead of pulling from a chit cup, which, you know, if I had to pull from a chit cup again and again, that would be really obnoxious because of the shaking being more mechanically annoying than rolling. As assigned on the next one, I'm not sure what's going on here. I think this foreign war was erased. I'm not sure because we have this drop to 110. Like, the question is, does the foreign war exist in Sandarkan or not? It looks like there was nothing that went up, so I think that this very faint line should be darker rather than Sindark and being erased. I'm just guessing. But I don't think the foreign war was resolved. That means, okay, time to look here. I think I got things right with the office vase, right? First, and that means we're in the political problems. The foreign war has to be resolved, which it probably won't. Unfortunately, Duke Henry is good, and I didn't want to go for the automatic failure. So the monarch support has gone back up with a success, even though I had gotten the number down to like a 3. I still rolled successfully to resolve it, which, yeah, not so hot. All right, well, since we're online, let's check the crown events. And again, I feel like I have to video this part just like the last video because I think the game is close to ending, and I think exciting stuff, as much as the game can provide it, this is the best it gets. 4, we get a famine. I know I can't spend IP. I think there's no counseling. Some cards are bonused. Trade Guild Merchant and Army. Not what I have. So this might be a good turn to attack. I don't know. How do I remember it's a famine? Yeah, I don't. There's, the idea of like counters to represent temporal events, like the event for the turn or whatever, that's a relatively new thing. Yeah, it might have shown up in some games where there's like some marker, but it seems like it's a lot more common now, especially in GMT games, to have like, not just, I think it's just kind of caught on across the board. But I remember first seeing it in some of the GMT games when I started picking those up, around 2010 or whatever, when I got back into gaming. And it was just so cool. There'd be like a marker that told you what event was in play or whatever. Back in my day, where this game is really kind of from, you often had to keep a set of notes. Now you would think that there would be room for that, given that there's, this piece of paper you have to track everything on. And again, I feel like the game made a mistake by creating per player pieces of information that had to be tracked. That immediately starts eating up the pages, right? Things have gotten kind of weird in the game. The end game, the nature of it changes. So, for example, here, I got an extra activity. I played a henchman so I don't have to discard a card. I grabbed Sir Richard, the Minister of State here. That's great. But I don't have any supports I can go for. Well, Minister of Trade can do something. Basically, what I was looking at was, can I gain Fandonian? I didn't really see that one. Minister of Trade or High Minister can attempt to get merchant support. I'll do that. I'm not sure about this henchman. Because what happens is, once you have enough prestige, and you're not expecting to be able to grab a lot more, that may not be the best thing to take from the board. Yeah, I'm not going to get that. I could court a FARC, but that's just money. Of course, money becomes more important now, because I could do something like draw a card. Maybe that'll get me something. Instead of playing this henchman. I'm going to play the henchman because my current henchman's in hiding. So another one, again, I don't know that I'm optimizing my situation, but I don't have a hell of a lot of options here. Except, do you want a coup? Do you want a coup? And I don't. I'm not in good position. This guy over here, something terrible happened. He's already fucked up the sporting table. Is only free. Oh, you can't spend IP this turn. Okay, so that's kind of important. I couldn't have bought a card or something. He wanted to go on the craft table because the number he pulled, 35, he needed one more PP to fill that out. And out of all the tables that were available, craft is the best for him. But I ended up getting a shitty roll, losing 5 PP and all my IP. That 5 PP means that I'm like 6 points under the limit, which means I have to ditch some people. People like the sheriff and the general are particularly useful right now. Ministry of Justice might be less important than it was, but like I don't want to give up my royal. The only way to come up with 6 perfectly that looks appealing to me is to give up the 2 ladies. Seduction can be very helpful. I don't have a treachery card. I don't think I can seduce a royal, though. Like, you normally can't, but there is this. But you don't get. Oh, the RC automatically becomes a FARC. Yeah, so I want to keep a female, at least one. Lady Mary is expendable. I could get rid of a 3 or 4 point card. I kind of feel like Lord Percival is he's so good at his job, but I don't really need a job. So yeah, I think I'm going to get rid of these 2. I'm not thrilled at all with what just happened, though. Like, you know, my one play has fucked me up. I was in kind of an okay position in terms of everyone else. I don't have anything I can do. I can't do an assassination. I didn't get the chit that you need to combine with that. I did my fucking prestige thing. This is where I get like, I'm like, oh, what do I fucking want to do? I can court a FARC. That's useful. I have no bonus because I didn't get the favor table, but at least it gives me something I didn't get the favor card. 5, RC is pleased. At least I get an IP out of it. It's a relatively low risk activity, right? But now I'm done, and that puts things over here. And it really kind of feels like this first faction here having treachered Thomas away. That's what happened, isn't it? Is kind of getting away with things by the assassination of the one person who could have really, and the High Monarch support that Thomas came in with. Lady Melanie, we have kind of an exciting opportunity here. I have, and I kind of want to take advantage of it this turn, because next turn I could draw a gout and be fucked, right? Next turn's the last turn, then something could happen. But I have an intrigue card. And I also have an assassination card. I look here, and conduct an assassination says intrigue opportunity counter and an assassination event. Whereas here, recruited character by treachery, oh, this may not work, and seduce a character, both say opportunity counter. I don't know if I can use the intrigue card. This is so fucking annoying, right? It says you must have the counter. I think maybe the intrigue opportunity card doesn't do this, which may mean I fucked up. I don't know. Probably not. So if I look at the event cards, which aren't all events, let's look for the intrigue one. Does it count as a counter? Yeah, it says here, a player may play this card and perform the same activity as if he had drawn an intrigue opportunity counter. Or a player may play it to use it as an assassination. Oh, now this is really crazy. It's like a wild card too. I didn't realize that. And that's 12.3.3. Okay, let's look these up. 12.3.3. This is fucking annoying. So this allows me to pull, yeah, so I think I can use it for what I was planning on, which is to try to seduce Thomas, again, optional rule here, right? And take him into play. Now, I could also do it for an assassination attempt, which would probably work if I simply assassinated whoever the player is. I think Sir Robert here. But I'd have to go to Kronos to do that. Now, but the whole rules, explanations, and things about the intrigue counter is problematic. Like, both in the rule book and in the activities card, it says you have to have the counter. And then the event card for intrigue sends you to various places to try to figure out if you can use it for what you want. Oh, by the way, that was the last card out of the deck here. I'm playing with my standard, hey, we'll shuffle when we need to, which I kind of don't like. I kind of like shuffle when the last card is drawn. The game whose rules I'm reading right now, the next game that's going to be coming up, has a specific rule that you shuffle as soon as the draw pile is emptied. This is kind of problematic, to tell you the truth, and I understand why we went to, if you're going to have a singular rule, it has to be when a card is needed from there. Because the reason it's problematic is, what happens if you miss that moment, right? If you miss the moment when a card needs to be drawn, it's perfectly fine, because the person can't complete their action until the deck is shuffled, right? So you can't miss the moment. But what happens if you miss the moment when the last card from here is drawn, and somebody discards something else, plays something else? What if a few things happen? Now you have to try to reconstruct and backdate the state, or violate what the effect of the rules is. So the only time that makes sense is the time that, and you know, it's very clever, right? The only time that makes sense, if you're going to formalize it, is when a card needs to be drawn. And if you're not going to, you know, if you're not going to formalize that, then you end up with game state being weird at different times. Anyway, where the hell am I? So I did one thing. I rolled on the craft table where I had a bonus, and I got myself some points and got my craft up to +2, but not quite enough to seduce Thomas. And I'm trying to figure out, where can I get another point? Well, was counseling outlawed due to famine? I thought it was, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't. You know, again, remember all the shit. It's all in here, but you got to look it up every time if you don't have a perfect memory of all these counters and all these events and all these damn fucking things. No counseling's allowed this turn. I don't have a FARC that I can go for. I don't know where I can get another prestige point. Which may mean I have to wait till next turn. And that probably means I don't want to activate this. I don't know if I want to do anything else with my extra activity. I mean, I can go for support, right? I honestly can't think of a single thing that's going to give me another PP. Now, I could pay IP. There's certain things that I could do that might, to draw one of these. That's not going to get me PP, though. Yeah, I can't think of anything I can do to gain PP under the current circumstances. So I guess I search for support. Now here again, and this is the optional rules, so yeah, you can make an argument that, look, you added to your burden by adding the optional rules. Problem is, the whole game is like these optional rules. So I have to look up, just like with the effects of the unresolved political problems, what I can do with my jobs. I have the High Minister. I can go for a lot of things with him. I have the Army. I don't have an Army support card. Again, I don't know how many there are. I have one in my hand. That's kind of nice. You know? I don't want to grab this dude. because he'll eat up he'll eat up the 4 surplus PP I have. I needed to get no, I actually have 7 surplus PP. I actually needed to get 8 total to get Thomas. I needed 4 additional. I had 4 extra. I needed to get 4 more to get that 8. And I don't have that. Again, I don't know if there's 2 army support cards. There's some place where it says something that leads me to believe there's only 1. But I know that there's more than 1 peasant and townsman support. Familiarity with the deck will help you here. It's a familiarity that I don't mind. Like, compare the familiarity with the deck in something like, I don't know, to take something pretty common, but some of the CDGs. Something like Twilight Struggle, where you kind of, as the person who's making the decisions, the role of the country that's making the decisions, not just the one person, but the role of that whole side, shouldn't have knowledge of what many of the events are, right? And you could say the same Paths of Glory, most CDGs. You shouldn't have knowledge of these sort of extraneous events that are likely to come forward. There's a problem with event tables too. On the other hand, in order to play the game effectively, now for Twilight Struggle you can play it reasonably, but not competitively, and I'm okay with that. For Paths of Glory, you cannot play the game to a historical, reasonable decision-making tree, I think, it's my opinion at least, without knowing what the deck is beforehand. And that's really problematic. I don't mind, look, I don't mind if, hey, to make the game competitively, like to be a competitive challenge in the game, you have to have memorized shit in the game that countries wouldn't necessarily have. Because there, you're playing the game instead of trying to simulate at all, right? You've taken the step over the line, not just I'm trying to win, but you've taken the step to I have made winning more important than, you know, reasonable knowledge aspects. Now, the problem, of course, is knowledge of what's in the deck and whatnot in terms of those events and everything just accrues. Now, this is one of the reasons why Europa Universalis has become less interesting to me. The first few times I played it, I knew what the broad events would be, just like with Twilight Struggle, but I didn't know what the specific effects are. Unfortunately, with the EU, you have to know what the specific effects are to some extent, because you kind of have to work them out ahead of time, because they're ambiguous and problematic. But anyway, let's leave that alone. Where the hell am I? I'm trying to figure out my next 2 actions. I have an extra activity. Yeah, I'm going to go for, I guess, I'll go for townsman support. What does he have? He has a foreign support Kronos. I don't really care about that. I fail, and I'll go for peasant support because I know there's a lot of cards, and they're all in there. I also fail. So that used up my turn. I didn't get anything. We're on the last player, who happens to be the one who's almost about to win the game. Not quite yet, but this is, you know, second to last turn. For his turn, something really fucked up has just happened. The event card deck got reshuffled. That means there's a lot less capability to court, you know, to try to gain these support cards. All right. It just becomes a less and less it becomes an incredibly less valuable thing. What she just did at the end of her turn was very potentially valuable at that moment. Now it's almost non-valuable unless you know that the card is already out there. It might be worth it if you got nothing better to do, right? Now, this is the kind of thing that in a game that was accurately doing a lot of other, you know, accurately kind of presenting a story that was believable about sort of a succession threat or whatever, would really disturb the hell out of me that there was this big switch, that there was this long, slow buildup of support that was going to be available if you got. And again, this is an optional role, so don't think too hard about it, I guess. But it would lead me to say, hey, I don't know about that optional. But this world is so unbelievable in so many ways. I'm just willing to accept that, all those peasants and townsmen and everything that were in there, they've become mostly apolitical now and don't give a shit. And in a way, you could make up some hand-wavy argument that, Thomas's reign isn't going badly, it's fine. But they're also not political enough that they would support him if he had the rabble-rouser. The rabble just can't be roused. Populism of whatever kind, even if, it's populism for merchants or something, is just not available. You could make kind of an argument that there was a sort of populist appeal to that the populist appeals are very similar to this kind of appeals that are made to what you would consider more oligarchic functions. So the kind of appeals that are made to big businesses and whatnot, there's still a pull to the emotion in a lot of ways. Some of that, though, has to do with the people who are in charge of making the decisions and the way that they make money and stuff like that, as opposed to the actual health and effectiveness and profit making of the businesses. It's actually the individuals who are making the decisions and their bottom line that is the important thing here. So, I don't know. Within any activity counter, I am going to recruit Queen Catherine with treachery. There's nothing that can be done about it. Right? I'm allowed to recruit a character with treachery with this, right? Right? Yep. And let's just look again. I believe there's not a damn thing that can be done to stop it. Oh, you know what? Thomas couldn't be recruited by treachery. I'm a little disturbed by that. A Farc monarch may not be recruited by treachery. I probably couldn't have grabbed him. So the game actually legitimately should have ended with a victory over here. That capability to steal a character, I was violating the rules with that. So, yay, this would have been over on the last video. Oh well. I'm going to just grab her. And I have enough points because I did a craft. I did a craft table and I got a maximal result on it. And then I am going to play an extra activity, I guess. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I have an extra card. I have to discard a card otherwise. I'm going to play an extra activity, and what can I do? Can I go for peasant support? See, here's the thing. It feels like the monarch should be able to try to get support cards from anywhere. Again, I cheated. I don't care. I mean, we've gone so far in this video, we might as well finish that last turn. What jobs do I have? I have treasury, and that's kind of it. Kronos, if somebody has the Kronos support card. Treasury. I don't know if the treasury can do anything. Don't look like... Oh, Minister of Treasury. Trade Guild event cards. I don't see any out there. But again, I can't think of anything I could do except courting the favor of a Farc So let's just roll this because it's a 1 in 6 chance I get some. Okay, so now if anybody has a trade guild card, they have to give it to me. One does. So, see, the thing here is, I want to do that last turn dynamic again. Because there's something really kind of interesting about it and about the feelings that occur in it. And I think that, like, that there's something kind of exciting about what happens during it. Unfortunately, the fact that I cheated obviates this whole video. You know, oops. It's kind of sad because it was one of the things where I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense that you can, like, steal the FARC monarch and put yourself in a better position. That's kind of the Edward IV being taken over by the Woodvilles from Neville. It kind of feels reasonable in a way that most of what happens in this game doesn't. And it is only so fucking apropos that, like, in actuality, no, this is an illegal action. And it actually created a really interesting situation because assassinating the main character here might not have been enough, right? You had to both steal the monarch and assassinate the main character to impact the effect, to get the effect you want. It did create a delay of game, though, right? It did lengthen the game. She should have won, hands down, because Thomas couldn't have been stolen, and you couldn't have avoided that final turn's play. But the combination is what made that all exciting, the extension of play. What made it all exciting was the fact that I had to not only steal the character, but also kill her, because she could just take it back and still be the most potent faction on the game. Here's the thing. The person who builds up the most potent faction, you can't take the monarch away from them by usurpation. Now, obviously, an assassination or whatever could have been undertaken to take Thomas, to kill Thomas themselves, but then as soon as she won it, she could raise another Thomas and bring him up. So yeah, I don't know. Really amusing to me that, like, one of the very few things that I got some excitement out of the game and said, wow, it's actually doing something kind of right here for, something that I can kind of explain in real world terms. One of the very few circumstances where that happened. No, they couldn't have. I was cheating. Here we are on the cusp of victory again. Again, though, if I hadn't cheated accidentally, if I hadn't forgotten a rule, and it's easy to forget a lot of, because everything's just embedded in these little, in this huge, like, I don't know. It's just all the same, It's not like there's anything different in the game. So what I'm thinking there is, in most war games and stuff, you got your movement phase, your combat phase. They all have these kind of defined. Here, it's just this mess of all these modifiers and charts and all this shit. Okay. Anyway, if I hadn't cheated, we wouldn't have had all this excitement, and I would have been done with this torture early. The order of play ends up here, starting here. There are no offices to assign. There's nothing funky in terms of problems. Monarchs. Support is big 120. It's one last chance to have things happen. Crown Events is a court ball. Let's party the legitimacy of good King Thomas. And since he's not, like, actually related to anybody, we should, like, marry him to Princess Anne or something. Give him his line some legitimacy. What's happened so far in the court ball table? Did well, gained a couple of PP, got a council. Let's give her a thing, maybe I'll remember. Was ignored. This is Lady Melanie's daughter or whatever. Got a 4. Disgraceful conduct. Player must designate PC or henchman. No henchman on the board there. To consult the scandal table. Banned from court balls again. It runs in the family. Okay, so we go to the scandal table. I believe there are no modifiers for this. Let's see what happens. Lewdness and disorderly conduct. She is accused of a wrongdoing. Don't believe anything can modify the accusation of wrongdoing. So status of 3. Doesn't save her. She's going to go to a hearing. Do I just want to go into hiding? This would be the time. I might as well. I don't think that there's much left in the game. Unfortunately, the hiding in Fandonia, which of course, you know, I forget entirely, all seem to be in play. Now I've got one of them here. I thought I had more. Oh, there's the second one, yeah. I don't have another one of those markers. I'm going to just put this upside down on her. That's no more invisible than the hiding in Fandonia's were. And, you know, deal with that. It would make a lot of sense if they used back-printed counters. This was from an era where that was not... There was a tendency, and I assume it's cheaper not to backprint, for Avalon Hill, I'm sorry, the Avalon Hill Game Company, to put out games with blank on one side of the counter and a value on the other. War and Peace had that situation as one example. Now, obviously, going pretty far back, they had back-printed counters. So they certainly had the technology to do it. They could have made the counter mix smaller, or certainly more effective by printing on both sides. I think they were probably told you can have this many counters, you know. There has to be some kind of decision making in this. I don't know. See, I don't understand it, because it's got to be cheaper, certainly today, because of the price of cardboard itself rather than the printing costs. It's got to be cheaper, even then though, to have printed double-sided counters than to print twice as many single-sided. I don't know if the game could have worked with a smaller counter sheet, but anyway, it strikes me as so archaic and so weird. This wasn't a game that came out in the late 60s or early 70s. This is a 1980s game, and War and Peace, also a fairly late game that came out, but single-sided counters. I don't know if SPI, they didn't do a hell of a lot of single-sided. They did some. So I don't know. So where are we? We're on the last player. Hey, let's do his court ball roll. He has to do it. He has no modifier. Oh, of course, he's, you know, well loved. So 4 PPs and he gets a +1 on the table. Already had a +1, so make it 5 PPs and a +2. Nice bonus. Court ball is about the best thing that can happen. My support would go up by 5, but it can't. I'm at max. Hey, let me, since I have a FARC Monarch here, let me remove this hiding, remove him from being a potential wrongdoer. There's no reason I would keep him as a wrongdoer. I believe it's a free. It doesn't say it's an action to do that. The reason I was going to is because she was about to extradite. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Wait, why hasn't he been, you know, freed up? An interesting thought. I have an amnesty in my hand, and since I have one of the people in hiding, maybe it's worth playing, but it's just kind of too late. The real question here is, what do I want to do, you know, for Lady Melanie or for myself. There's nothing I can do for myself, honestly. I grabbed the character that I got. That gives me 3 more status. I could do a quick calculation. I think I should, because the potentials, you know, this is the last turn. I ought to make one last check to see what the points are going to be. So I'm going to scribble down estimated points and, you know, see if I can even come within the realm. But I really think that the plus 30 from this keeps me from any chance. I calculated the absolute minimum score that he could get, and it's 72 points. I calculated the absolute maximum score that I could get, and it's 68. Is there any support I could grab? Probably not. The question is, you know, whether I want to go for something like the peasant support here with a D4. Do I have... We lost the famine. That was last turn. Do I have anybody interesting? Do I have the admiral? Do I have the sheriff? No. There's no famine. I don't have the archbishop. All those cards would be really huge in his hands. I'm trying to think, is there anything I can do about internal if I could grab something? That foreign support Kronos, I do not have someone in Kronos, so I can't go for that. I have one thing I can do. I looked through my cards. I have the amnesty. I have an assassination, great card. I don't have the intrigue that's necessary for it to go. I counted these in. I'm going to just declare the amnesty, I guess. It's possible that these other cards would help, but the way I see it is I calculated the min-max. I'm 4 points short, even if, you know, this is if every die roll of mine is a 6 and every die roll of his is a 1. You know, Andy has no additional cards there, so I've got absolutely no choice. That gets rid of these hiding in Fandonia counters, which have had little or no impact on the game because they're kind of invisible. And I'm allowed to counsel. I might as well, you know, if the game goes on, I might as well pad my position. I don't know what happened, but I'm too many points here. I think I forgot to get rid of somebody I was supposed to get rid of or something. So I count, I'm only at 29 PP. Maybe I lost some somehow, but I don't think so. And I count here 3, 11, 14, 19, 27, 31. I've only got 29. I got to get rid of 4. Which I don't know what the fuck. Again, this is a really, really painful aspect to the game. I think maybe I lost some off a table. I know I lost some off them. I thought I lost the characters for it. It was like, do I want to lose the 2 women? No, I'll do this because that's too valuable. 4 points. That's either the Ministry of Justice or the General. I'll get rid of Justice, I guess. I'm looking at my hand. I have no idea of any way I can progress. Let me think about what maxims I can have, because I may not want to do things that take away from her chances of taking the crown. Okay, I'm coming up to a maximum total of about 32 here, which obviously isn't going to win the game. So I don't want to do anything that'll fuck things up. However, I have an extra activity. I have all these annoying charts, of which there's one I want to find. The activities chart, which is draw a counter or card costs 1 IP. It also costs an action. I'm going to buy another opportunity counter. First one gave me 1 IP. I threw it back in. Maybe I shouldn't have. Let's hold that out. That's the one that I drew. So we get another one. We get an extra activity. That cost me 1. I have to pay another one. That's gain an IP. I'll spend that and my extra activity to draw another one. I'm looking for an intrigue here. Gain 1 IP. Okay. I'm out of possibilities here. I needed an intrigue. I have an extra activity here that I could have used if I wanted to, but I don't. So I'll put those back in. I think I'm done with the turn. I just pass. This was a desperate attempt to kill either the faction leader here and open things up to a bloodbath, or the monarch himself and throw the game back into the state of, hey, nobody's got a FARC anymore. But the nobody's got a FARC anymore, we put Prince John on the throne, there would be a minimal non-player faction bolstered by the 30 points. Well, no, because we'd reestablish monarch support. John might be hated compared to Thomas because he's too fucking legitimate. Yeah, so it might have completely, you know, it would completely reset things. But I think people would be relatively close to this. Let's look at this. This would be 19, oh no, 10, 13, 14, 18, 23, 28. So any player who had a turn would be able to take this over, pretty much. You know, we were looking at, hey, she's at 68. We're in the 30s here. It would have been harder for us. But yeah, I mean, the idea of assassinating Thomas doesn't prevent a usurpation of whoever comes back. Whereas an assassination of this guy, of his main character, would weaken his faction and still leave the relatively weak Thomas in place, who's easier to usurp. So that's the whole thing. If a more powerful faction is able to promote, you know, say Queen Catherine, wherever the hell she is. Well, she's over there. But say, I mean, he would be using Thomas, or she would be using Thomas. Over here, probably be using Thomas. So, yeah, you know, I have the big advantage of Philip, right? But I was counting that in my total sum. And, yeah, it just it doesn't come out good enough. All right, one last player gets a shot. I'm not going to play his turn because he can just put the game in his pocket at that point. And here I drew Ambassador to City-States and a Scandal counter. Now, a Scandal counter, immediately you think, ooh, that could be good. Yeah, except for one problem. The monarch is essentially immune from the legal system. So if we go to expose a scandal, what are we going to get off of it? Go to the scandal table, and the worst is go to trial. But here's the thing. If pardoning people, etc., is, as I've so far worked, he may return his PC or fax who are banished, imprisoned, or wrongdoers to a normal situation, pardoning them, and lift a ban from court balls from his PC or any fax. So the question there is that a one-time when you become king? Or do you have that power? If it's a one-time, I kind of cheated, but mainly by omission, mainly it's to correct an omission, that I would have freed Earl Francis if I had seen the damn counter on him. But those those white counters on white characters are invisible as far as I'm concerned. Okay. So you could argue it either way. Do I want to expose the scandal? I don't know. Another option would be to attempt the seduction. I have the intrigue. If I have Thomas, that resets it at 3 turns. I've got a fairly powerful faction. If I was allowed to cheat once to get it there, I've got to be able to cheat to get it there. So, yeah. I don't have a treachery card. Let's do the one thing we have to do in that case. That's to get enough PP to hold him, right? Because I've got 1, 8, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 26, 31. I need 4 more PP. That's what stopped me last turn. The 2 tables I have bonuses on are Craft and Literary Pursuits. Both cost nothing. Literary Pursuits can only get me 3 PP, but Craft can get me relatively easier 5 PP. So let's do that. Let's buy a +1 on it. Haha. Nope, we're not allowed to go above +2. No matter what. And that's what we have. We get a 7, ordinary roll again. Oh, awesome. And I think we still get our bonus in there. We get an 8. Oh, business as usual. 1 IP, 1 PP. Now we're stuck with the, hey, we've got to raise 3 PP somehow, and I got no idea how. This is how I was last turn. I'm kind of hoping I don't. But what am I going to do to try to raise that? I don't know. I will be allowed to speak counsel on the court ball table because I have people with jobs. So that's a possibility. I may want to throw a henchman down or something for that. But I mean, not that it matters. The game's over, right, if I don't succeed. But I can't think of too many things that are going to help. Court ball, or I'm sorry, I don't have a royal that I can court. The counseling table gives me at most 2 PP. I'm still 1 PP short, even if I roll a maximal roll. I do not know of a way that I can get more prestige. Which leaves me with 1 opportunity left. Now, if I assassinate the main character here, it drops his prestige down, but that doesn't get rid of Thomas. Could I usurp in that case? I don't know, maybe. But instead I'm going to try to assassinate Thomas himself, reset things to get him over here, and, you know, whoever goes first, it kind of will depend on who goes first in terms of who can get a usurpation first, but then they have to build up their 3 turns, and the same kind of, and no doubt exciting ending to the game does come about. This may be why people have a positive memory of the game, is, you know, they go through the tedium or whatever and eventually get to the point where the ending is actually kind of cool in terms of gameplay. It still doesn't make any sense. Okay. I'm hoping this fails, but it's cool that it's coming down to the wire of, like, you know, final plays and stuff. This reminds me of a couple of really epic games that I've been involved in, where it's like, and cards have a lot to do with that. One in particular I'm thinking of is Geronimo, where somebody was able to, like, you know, it actually wasn't even the end of the game. It was during a turn, but it was, you know, to achieve certain point bonus for getting a statehood or something. Nobody can stop, you know, this state from, you know, Oklahoma from becoming a state or something like that. And somebody just pulled out this battered Indian tribe card. You forgot the Pawnee. And they just come tearing out and, like, have almost no strength left, but they were able to do enough of a raid that they were able to take the hit away and do what was necessary. And it was just an amazing, and I mean, you know, I know we all have stories like that, right? That one sticks in my head. I don't know why, but some of it has to do with the fact that there's hidden information on the cards and stuff, and somebody's there looking and calculating everything, knowing all the important stuff, and some unimportant thing comes up. And in this case, you know, it's not iconic because there's only one of me and I'm not going to make statements like that, right? Simply because I'm busy trying to find the answer. Okay, so we're going to try an assassination of a king. Let's take a look at the assassination. Intrigue, opportunity, and assassination, but we decided it can be something else. Additional assassination cards, I don't have any. And only the player, I think, is allowed to play them. Again, we have to look this up, right? But it would make sense that you can't bring other people in. And now we have all kinds of stuff here. Did I have like an extra activity that I could have done? I don't think so. So this is me doing it. Ha ha! Lady Melanie sneaks in. Okay. The player attempting the assassination may play more than one. Any player can play a treachery, which subtracts 2. That's bad. I don't want that. Any player can play an informer for both ways, but no more than one can be used to modify. This is going to be a timing issue. We're going to have to roll to see who gets first shot at this. So we're here. Got an assassination. Doesn't have anything. Palace guards, I think, can be used both ways. I just haven't gotten to them yet. Well, if nobody has an informer, that's not going to be an issue. And nobody has palace guards. So let's go to the defender. He has a palace guards. I believe that can help him. Personal guards cannot, because we're going after the monarch, not the player. Okay. So that's going to be a 2 against the assassination attempt. Let's make sure she doesn't have anything. I'm pretty sure she doesn't. Could have played a henchman to protect myself. Didn't have enough time. Didn't have enough actions. Which means we're at -2 on the table. Ah, caught, goes to trial. Okay, look, the game is over here. I could go through the trial and whatnot. I don't want to do that particularly. Thomas has just, who is this? Sir Robert has just won by keeping Thomas on the throne for 3 turns. I think that's enough. I don't want to play around with the mechanisms. You know, sometimes I'm like, ooh, let's see what happens due to the story. You know, let's see what problem comes out. Yeah, I can't help myself, man. I can't help myself. I want to know, what's the secret? Does Lady Melody, like, get in trouble? Okay, she immediately went to trial. Fine. Who's Minister of Justice? Minister of Justice is here. So the judge is random. It's the anti-king judge. He's going to throw his weight behind her. Fine, fine, fine. At least it went directly to trial. It didn't go through hearings or anything. That means we're looking at evidence. The only person who wants to play evidence is him. Everyone else is just kind of like, yeah, you know. Okay, we might as well play it all because we're all here, and nobody was going to overthrow him. And actually, this is worthwhile because there's a possibility that she could have still overthrown him. I didn't calculate that out. So that's 2 evidence. That's -2. She doesn't have an action, so she can't play her amnesty. Any player can play an informer. We already looked for informers, so that's not going to happen. So we're at -2 on the trial table. Or +2, sorry. Well, +2, but the judge, which judge was it? I think it was that one. So it's a -3 on the trial table in total. And she's found not guilty. Okay, I get one more shot to do a usurpation. Let me see what kind of points I can come up with. Obviously, I didn't go in that direction, or I would have done other things. No, I can't usurp because I don't have the space for the monarch. Oh, but I do have the space for just Thomas. So I think I'm actually allowed to because the placement of the monarch card is an additional thing. All right, let's count. Looks kind of hopeless. Some of the die rolls were pretty bad. So first of all, we get 2 points for Thomas himself, right? 39 points for the status of all my other characters. 36 points for the die rolls on the support tables. Now, I had a very powerful 5 times on 2 townsman support cards. I rolled a 1 and a 2 for the 2 dice there. So I only got 15 points from that, whereas I got like 18 points from Eppelin just by a lucky D6 roll. So, you know, kind of mixed bag there. This could have been a lot worse. And then 30 points for the monarch support. That's going to get me to 107. I think that's way out of range of Melanie, but might as well see what we have. Now, she also is going to throw Thomas against Thomas. Quite as bad as I thought. Again, she had a lot of support, including an army support sitting in the card. None of the multipliers, though, unfortunately. Might have been better off risking for a support card than going for the assassination. This ends up getting us to a grand total of 87. Now, she's really accused of a wrongdoing now. She's just dead. But that's okay. I wanted to take a chance on it, and I bet you if I had calculated it out, the over-under, she would have had a shot at doing so. Coming within 20 points, I look here at the points here, 36 here. I managed to get 50, and I could have rolled better. I'm almost positive that I could have, that it would have been possible for a success. So that's the end of the game. Now, I'm going to make the argument here. First of all, obviously, look, this is a tedious and horrible game for most of it, and from my point of view, right? If everything could have been handled electronically, how much better would it be? Well, you'd be left without being able to dig into the information that you need to determine how valuable things are, right? That's kind of the feeling that I have. So like with Crusader Kings, a lot of the times I'm looking at things and I'm like, yeah, but I don't know what the odds are, right? I kind of want to know what the odds are, but if you want to do something that detailed and kind of random, you do kind of want to know the odds. Now the game, the computer game at least gives you you have a low chance of this, or, you know, or you have no chance. I'm actually kind of unhappy. The new Crusader, the Crusader Kings 3, and I don't remember this from 1, which I played extensively, but might be the case in 2, has a guarantee, like, if you succeed in a proposal, either for a marriage or for guardianship or something, it's just automatic. If you get a positive value, it happens. If you don't, it doesn't. It's that simple. There's no luck factor in it. Not really happy about that. I feel like they should tell you something like there's a low chance that they'll accept or something along those lines. But instead it gives you the calculation and just says it happens or it doesn't. Which feels a little weird. For the type of game it is. Anyway, in order to give you the kind of information in a multiplayer competitive type game, and I feel like this is, you know, it may not be a a game in which you're bringing your best strategy and whatnot too, but when the game's competitive, you kind of feel like you should be able to at least see what the odds are, you know? And in order to do that, you kind of need the charts, right? You kind of need all the information in the rules, etc., which I think is too high a burden to expect out of a group that's going to play this game for the first time or whatever. Are they going to fall in love with it and want to play it from then on? Well, stats on BGG do not show that. They show something that I think is kind of shocking, which is that there's a small set of people who've played it about 10 times, which is just kind of like, whoa, really? Now, I've probably played it that many times, but we're talking, you know, over, since it's been published, right? And, of course, all solitaire, too, because, again, I think I forced my first wife to play this once. We tried to do all my games that we could possibly do two-player, and some that we couldn't. Yeah, that's not working. Fuck. I'll figure it out later, I guess. And yeah, so the majority of the game is going to be this tedious sort of thing. There is some excitement when you come to the very end of the game in terms of who's going to be able to get their hands on the monarch, and you know who's going to get the first usurpation off, and what kind of monarch support are they going to get off of it. Are there going to be follow-up usurpations? Okay, that's all cool. But then the fact that the only way to take the monarch away legally is to usurp the monarchy. That you can't use the treachery. The treachery actually made this game significantly more interesting. The fact that there was another way to steal the monarch away. And it still doesn't really change the dynamic in terms of like, you still need the power to usurp, right? If you don't have the power to usurp, you're not going to hold that monarchy. So I actually think that being able to seduce or treachery a player monarch, a player-controlled monarch, is actually an advantageous thing. It did make the game more exciting, brought it into, you know, this overtime in a way that just wouldn't have happened. Otherwise, she would have just won off of Thomas because there's no way he had enough power to usurp Thomas, but he did have the treachery cards, and she didn't have enough power to take it back. It also, again, was one of the few things in the game that I could align with a historical event properly. I keep getting asked about why do you keep this damn game if you don't like it? Why don't you sell it? You know, whatever. Look, I've sold a couple of games in my life. I think almost all of them were dupes. There's two games I got rid of in my life. One I gave away to my psycho ex-girlfriend, and it got destroyed and is worth hundreds of dollars. And I'm really pissed about that. It wasn't a good game, but I was kind of like, geez, I don't know, like my little brother had liked it too, but like I would have kind of enjoyed giving it to him as well. So it's not really, like I wouldn't have sold it, I'd have it. But I'd have it now and be able to, you know, demonstrate it. And that was Mystic Wood, which is sort of like, you know, a combination of, it's like Magic Realm mixed with Candyland. I mean, it's just like a completely random thing. No thinking at all. No interesting mechanisms, and nothing to recommend it at all. And for some reason, it goes for, you know, over $100. I don't know. But yeah, she left it in like lying around on the floor. Her shit just tended to get destroyed and whatever. So I regret that one. But the other was the original Down in Flames, Rise of the Luftwaffe. I ended up replacing it with a worse game. The reprint, the components are worse. The rules are worse. It's just shittier. I regretted that for a long time because I actually really kind of enjoyed the way that played. But it's the kind of thing that I would like. I would want to play it as a filler for dogfights rather than anything else. But yeah, I really regretted selling that. Other things I sold were dupes, and I kind of don't mind. You know, like I sold a dupe of Kursk and stuff like that. But I also accidentally traded a game and ended up with Squad Leader and all kind of other things instead of Third Reich. Now, I've picked up a copy of the same edition of Third Reich that I had. Never going to play Third Reich, probably. I don't know, maybe. But you know, once I got Advanced Third Reich, I was kind of like, but I would kind of like to play Advanced Third Reich on the old Third Reich board because I liked the old Third Reich board better. Although the Advanced Third Reich board is beautiful, the old Third Reich board was much smaller and has certain advantages to it. But you can't actually do that. The rules don't work, right? But anyway, and now I have, A World at War, which somehow has gotten separated from the Third Reich stuff. Interesting. Perhaps because of the Storm games that it had to combine, that it has to be next to, but I don't know. Anyway, what happened there, it's just like every time that I am without something, I feel unhappy about it. Like anything that I've lost in my life makes me unhappy. Anything where I no longer own something. And that goes for almost everything. I am a complete hoarder. Like, I'm regretting that I've used up all my paper cups. I'm regretting office furniture that I've had to leave at various houses. Broken office furniture that I managed to, be able to use and whatnot. Just every single item that I have, it's very hard for me to part with anything. But with games, games and books, the emotional connection is exceedingly high. That and things with, specific emotional connections, which I keep losing. I do not want to, clothing too, though, is hard too. Shoes, I mean, everything. All right, look, the paper cups is kind of a joke, but kind of not as well, The idea of losing one of these things that has been in my life for so long and that I've had for so much time, that is just devastating. I mean, there's a reason I don't get pets, right? Because they die. I've learned not to get humans anymore because they die. The nice thing about games is they tend to last a fairly long time. Sure, the boxes fall apart and everything, but it's kind of important. Anyway, for those of you who are just clipping to the end of this or whatever for the wrap, sorry about going into personal shit and whatnot, but if you think that you have, if you want to get a view of the game outside of my own impressions, take a look at the first playthrough video, and take a look at this video and the one prior to it. I think they show the game at its best, and also at a lot of detail. If you want to just take my word that it's not worth it, it's not worth it, man. It is not worth it. I would not mind getting together with a group that already knew the game and had played, and everybody was used to playing it and whatnot. I wouldn't mind even if I wasn't used to it all. Okay? But I do not want to bring this game to any group for the simple fact that I would feel so fucking responsible for the miserable time that they would have. Right? And honestly, you know, it's better than most Euros, I guess. It's better than most worker placement Euros and shit like that. But only because it's not, I mean, it's just as annoying and everything. It's just, at least it's different. Yeah, it's a pretty bad game. It's pretty bad. And there's a reason I rated it a 5. I have, so here's the thing. I have this sort of, you know, do I like a game? Do I respect a game? I probably like this a little more than I respect it. I have absolutely no respect for it. In terms of like, I mean, there's something that I like about the theme to it, and there's something I like about a lot of randomness. But that's it. That's all that's going for this. All right, we're going to pack this up. The next game I do is going to be a review copy. You have to follow my lists if you want to know what game specifically is coming up next in those kind of cases. It's the one I just got. But, yeah. Thing to note before I go away. One of the biggest things in the game, especially if you're playing without the optionals, is what your first rolls on the prestige tables are and what your rolls on the important ones are. Sure, you have some capability to throw an extra buck in or whatever to give yourself a +1 on the table. But if you end up with a negative modifier on one of the important tables, that is really, really devastating. You will have a hard time growing your faction under that. And that's something that, like, again, first-time players, or even me, every time I come to this, I'm like, okay. And then late in the game, I start to realize, I should have done that to begin with. It's just sort of a random thing. You're like, okay, we'll roll on this, see how we do. The different, whatever the fuck they are, where are they? The different prestige tables are very different. Most of them are not very useful, but there are a couple of them that are so valuable. And, you know, the ones that are worth it, you want to get a good roll on. Some of them also don't have sort of lasting effects. Carousing. I've never used fucking carousing. But like, you know, something like Literary Pursuits gives you lots of pluses, but it's sort of a long grind to get anywhere. Craft gives you a decent amount of pluses, a decent amount of value, and it's free. It's one of the better ones in my view. But on the other hand, I really like the Patronage, even though it's expensive. It gives you the best possible PP increase, and PP is the game. But I'm learning Sporting is a pretty fucking good table too. Problem with Sporting is that it ends up not accumulating bonuses very well. So if you pay to be on the Sporting table, you may have to pay more times, you know, whatever. Carousing just looks scary, although if you have a lot to do, it could be really, really valuable. Like, it is a very specific one. Gaining IP, the gambling table, doesn't seem terribly valuable. It's one reason I don't go to the business speculation. It's $3. It's a little weaker than Patronage, but it gives you a backup to Patronage and gives you tons of money too if you start getting good at it. So, yeah, I mean, but anyhow, my feeling with that is always, look, the naive player doesn't necessarily remember, that being me, doesn't remember that they can pay to improve things, and just rolls on the tables, and you know, it ends up impacting your game from then on. You just have a struggle. Now there's other things that there's luck, a tremendous amount of luck in too. There is a lot of luck in this game to begin with, you know, just across the board. But most of it is kind of smoothed out. Something like the prestige table modifiers is something that hits you early in the game when you first touch that table, when you first touch a particular table. and can impact your play throughout the entire game until you die.